Hello everyone, this is Rick. In this video, we are going to see what were the efforts the Britishers took in order to improve the situation of education in the Indian subcontinent. We are also going to see their efforts to reform the Indian society and the steps they took in order to improve the transport and communication system in India. Now, this video is catered according to the syllabus of Class 8 ICSE board. However, anyone interested in the topic can go through the video. Please carry a notebook with you so that you can note down the important points. And also, the last part of this video contains question answers which will help you in your exams. So let's start with British education reforms and transport in the Indian subcontinent. Introduction of Western education. So Britishers were the people who introduced Western education in the Indian subcontinent. How and why did they do that? So there was initial disinterest. The Britishers at first did not want to do anything regarding the educational system in India. The East India Company initially showed little concern for the promotion of education in India. Only a few schools were set up mainly to supply qualified Indians for the company's law courts. So initially there were only a few schools which the Britishers did. And what were the motive behind the establishment of those schools? They wanted Indians for the company's law courts in India. Indians' knowledge of classical language and vernaculars was used in administration. So Indians had huge knowledge in classical languages and vernacular languages, which are regional languages in India. So those knowledge were used in administration. The aim was not general education but fulfilling judicial and clerical requirements. So the aim of the Britishers was not to generally educate the Indians, but their aim was to fulfill the judicial and clerical requirements in the Indian subcontinent for administration. Educational policies were guided by practical company needs. So all of their educational policies which they did in India was for their own benefit, was according to what kind of workers the company needed in the Indian subcontinent. No effort was made to educate the general population. So there was no intention to educate the whole of India, so no intention was made to educate the general population. These limited steps became the base for future debates on education policy in India. Beginning of new education. So how did this limited education in the Indian subcontinent begin? Charter Act of 1813. This act directed the company to spend rupees 1 lakh annually for the promotion of education in India. So through this act the company had to spend, it was like compulsory to spend 1 lakh rupees annually to improve the educational situation in India, and that was according to the direction of Charter Act of 1813. This amount was first used to promote Oriental institutions like Calcutta Madrasa and Sanskrit College at Varanasi. So this money was used to build colleges, Oriental institutions in Calcutta and Sanskrit College in Varanasi. Established in 1800 at Calcutta to train company officials in Indian languages. That was the job of Fort William College. So Fort William College was made in Calcutta, and what for was it made? It was made to train the company officials in Indian languages. So the Britishers, in order to do business in India, needed to have a knowledge of Indian language. And who would provide that knowledge? The Fort William College, which was established to train the Europeans in Indian languages. The Charter Act marked the beginning of state participation in Indian education. So, through the Charter Act, the state participated in Indian education for the first time, and that was the beginning of British investment in education in the Indian subcontinent. Controversies arose on whether to promote Oriental or Western education. So, there was controversy, there was debate regarding on what medium the Indian should be educated, Oriental or Western education. Oriental meant indigenous education or European education. The act allowed more focus on systematic education. So, through this act, more focus was given to systematic education. This act laid the basis for future reforms in education by the British. So, whatever the Britishers did regarding education in India, this act was the basis for it. Orientalists and Anglicists. So, who were the Orientalists and who were the Anglicists? Two groups. Educational development led to a debate between Orientalists and Anglicists. So, these were two groups in which the educational society of India was divided regarding on what medium should the Indians be educated. Will it be in Orientalist or indigenous medium, or it will be according to the Western system of education? Orientalists believe they favored promotion of Indian learning classical languages like Sanskrit, Arabic, and Persian. So these are the three classical languages from which all the indigenous languages are deemed to have originated. So Orientalists favored the learning of classical languages like Sanskrit, Arabic, and Persian. They advocated Western sciences, English language, and literature. That was the belief of the Anglicists. So, Anglicist process of education was to promote Western sciences, English language, and English literature or Western literature. So, Orientalist means believe in the classical education system of India, and Anglicists believed in the introduction of Western education or European system of education in the Indian society. English missionaries were religious institutions whose sole purpose was to promote Christianity in India. So they supported the Anglicists as they wanted Indians to read the Bible in English. So all these missionaries supported the Anglicists because they wanted the Indians to read Bible in English. Calcutta Madrasa and Sanskrit College represented the Orientalist view. So Calcutta Madrasa and Sanskrit College in Benares, they represented the view of the Orientalists. Governor General Lord William Bentinck supported the Anglicists. So, Governor General or the head of the company in India, who was Lord Bentinck, he supported the view of the Anglicists. That means he wanted the Indians to be educated through Western educational policies. English education was promoted while Persian was abolished in court. So there was this decision taken that Persian, which was going on since the time of Delhi Sultanate, that will be abolished in court, and English education was being promoted. That was the policy taken by the Britishers in India. Anglicists triumphed, marking the dominance of Western education. So the Anglicists triumphed means they got the victory. Thus, Western education was promoted for the first time in Indian subcontinent. Macaulay's system of education. Who was Macaulay and what improvements did he do in the system of education? So Macaulay's Minute. Lord Macaulay strongly advocated Western education in English. So Lord Macaulay did not have any faith in the indigenous educational institutions. He totally destroyed the Oriental medium of education in India and strongly advocated for Western education in English. Unfortunately, we are still following that. To create a class of Indians. What was the aim of his educational policy? His aim was to create a class of Indians who will be Indian in blood and color, but English in taste. So, this was his quote, that we want Indians who will look like Indians but will behave like the Britishers. So, the, his aim of education was to create workers for the Western society. English became the official medium, replacing classical languages. So the medium of instruction was changed from Sanskrit or Persian to English. And so English replaced all the classical languages in India. English literature, science, and Western philosophy were encouraged, and the study of classical languages were discouraged. So English literature, science, and Western philosophy was given more priority than any other thing. Persian was abolished and substituted by English in law courts. So, in the case of legal matters or judiciary, Persian was totally abolished and everything was being taken over by English. Schools and colleges teaching in English were established. So many schools and colleges of English medium were established all throughout India. English gradually became the language for higher learning. So for higher learning, only one language was available, or any subject you will had to learn through only one medium, that is English. This policy shaped the mindset of an English educated class in India. So, through this policy, the mindset of the Indians became like the Britishers. Wood's Despatch, 1854 CE. So, what was the Wood's Despatch? It wanted to create another set of Indians who will be loyal to the Britishers. So, Wood's Despatch was the first major comprehensive scheme of for education in India. So, it was the first major planned way to promote Western education in India. It accepted English as a medium for higher education. So through Wood's Dispatch, English was accepted as the medium of higher education. Macaulay's Minute got more of a practical approach through Wood's Dispatch in 1854. Vernacular languages were to be promoted at primary levels. So vernacular languages means regional languages the people or the students will learn only during the primary levels. After that, vernacular languages will be discarded off. Education departments were established in every province. So, in every province, education departments were established. Universities were set up in Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras in 1857. So, in 1857, three of the first universities in India were set up, that is, Calcutta University, Bombay University, and Madras University. Training institutions were created to improve teaching standards. So, to improve the quality of teachers in India, training institutions were set up and their Indian teachers were made according to Western philosophy and Western mentality. Subjects like arts, sciences, law, and engineering were included. So there was an expansion in the curriculum. That is, many diverse disciplines were included in the syllabus, like arts, sciences, law, and even engineering. It emphasized Western education for the moral and material progress of India. So, Western education was promoted to create a set of Indians who will be loyal to the Britishers. Purpose of Western education. What were the motives behind the introduction of Western education in India? So, political motive. The British wanted to strengthen their political authority by creating loyal Indians. So, the British wanted Indians to be loyal to the imperial court or to the Westerners. Therefore, they wanted to create a set of Indians who will be Indians only in look but British in taste. English educated Indians were employed as clerks at low salaries. So, Indians who were English educated, they will do the clerical works for the company at very low salaries. So, in order to get cheap clerks, the Britishers wanted Western education in India. This reduced the cost of bringing clerks from England. So, if you wanted the clerks from England who would be loyal to you, then you will have to spend a lot of money. That was prevented by the Britishers by creating a set of Indians who will work as cheap clerks for the Britishers. A small educated class was expected to spread knowledge to the masses. This was called downward filtration theory. The Britishers never wanted to educate all of India. They wanted to educate only a limited number of Indians, and they hoped that these Indians will educate the other general public. So they will spread knowledge to the masses, and this theory was called downward filtration theory. These Indians would have Western morals, opinions, and intellect. So they will be Britishers in their culture. So these Indians will have Western morals, their opinion will also be aligned with the Britishers, and intellectually they will be like the Britishers. English education created consumers for British products. So, thus, indirectly, they also created a market for British products in India through English education. Educated Indians helped in running the empire. So, educated Indians will remain loyal to the Britishers. They will save a lot of expense to bring, which was going on to bring workers from Britain. So, thus, educated Indians will help in the smooth running of the empire. It became essential for government jobs after 1844. So, if anyone wanted government jobs, then it was compulsory to know English according to the system after 1844. So, these were the purpose of Western education in India. Impact of Western education. Now, how did the Western education affect the Indian society? Decline of traditional learning. The traditional learning, which was going on for like 5,000 years in the Indian subcontinent, that was totally on a decline. Many people have this notion that Indians were not educated before the coming of the Britishers. Indians were totally uneducated. No, Indians were educated according to the traditional system of learning, and there was high rate of education in the Indian society. However, the traditional system of learning vanished, and the Western system of education could educate only a limited number of Indians. So large portion of the Indian general public remained uneducated. Loyal English class. The English educated elite remained faithful to the British. So these people who were educated according to Western principles, they were loyal Indians. They were Indians who could do everything for the Britishers. Educated Indians rejected their own culture and copied the British. So, this system, which has been going on even today, that anything Western means better than anything indigenous. So, this concept came from the time of introduction of Western education in India. So, educated Indians rejected their own culture and they wholeheartedly accepted the British cultures, and they showed the other Indians also that British culture is better, which was wrong in every way. Education focused on a few, creating gulf between elites and masses. So education was only for a few Indians. Thus there was a gap between the elites and the masses. Means very few people got education and other general public remained uneducated. Western education spread knowledge of science and literature. Western education had focus on science and literature. So there was a little bit sense of awareness increase among the Indians. Indians began analyzing social evils and backwardness. So this is one of the positive effect of Western education, where the Indians started to rectify the social evils in the Indian society. Ideals of rationalism and liberalism inspired nationalism. So, with the ideals of rationalism and liberalism, which they learned from the other European countries like the France and America in the form of French Revolution and American Revolution, from there they learned nationalism. English became a common language, breaking regional barriers. So, English became a common language, and thus everyone from every part of India could communicate with the help of English. Humanitarian measures by the British government. So, what were the social reforms done by the British government? Beginning of reforms. Reforms started under Lord William Bentinck, who was the Governor General from 1828 to 1835 with Raja Ram Mohan Roy's support. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy was called the first modern man in India. And so with the support of Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Lord William Bentinck started to remove evils from the Indian society. What were those evils? Human sacrifice. Primitive tribes practiced sacrifice of children. So there were some tribal societies in India which practiced to sacrifice children, and it was banned in 1802 by Lord Wellesley. So this was banned. This system of human sacrifice was banned in 1802 by Lord Wellesley. It was suppressed again by Lord Hardinge in 1846. So this was one of the worst social practice which was still going on in India, even though in limited numbers, but it was still happening. So this was banned by the British government. Then there was female infanticide, which meant killing of girl children was widespread. Bengal Regulation 21 of 1795 declared it as murder. So Bengal Regulation number 21, which was done in 1795, declared that killing of girl child was a murder. In 1870, registration of births was made compulsory to check female infanticide. And to further enforce this method, in 1870 there was a system done which included registration of all the births which was happening, and thus female infanticide was put in check. Then there was the system of Sati. This Sati system originated because of the attack by Islamic invaders in northwestern part of India. So when the Islamic invaders started attacking the Rajput kingdoms, many times all of the male members of the Rajput society had to fight in wars, and most of them perished. So the woman of the village, in order, or even the woman in the kingdom, in order to prevent their self respect to be looted, they jumped in the fire. So that was the system of Johar. However, it later on evolved to the practice of Sati, where when a husband of a woman died, then that woman was forcefully burned in the funeral pyre of their husband. So the custom of widows burning with husband was banned in 1829 CE by William Bentinck. So thus sati was abolished in the Indian subcontinent. He suggested Lord Wellesley at first he suggested the abolition in 1803, but it was rejected then. So in 1803 there was a motive to abolish sati, but it was finally rejected in 1829. Widow Remarriage Act. Widows were not being remarried in the Indian subcontinent. So, an act was passed in 1856, which was the Widow Remarriage Act. It was passed due to the efforts of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar under Lord Dalhousie. So, under Lord Dalhousie, with the efforts of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, widow remarriage was done for the first time in the Indian subcontinent, first time in modern India. Previously, actually, it used to happen. These measures aim to eradicate social evils systematically. Thus, the Britishers, even though they did a lot of harm to the Indian society, they did all these social reforms which were actually beneficial for the Indian society. Transport and communication. What did the Britishers do in order to improve the communication situation in India? So there was a need for networks. Roads, canals, steamships, and railways were developed to serve the British trade. Now, when I say transport and communication, this does not mean that the Britishers did it for the benefit of Indian public. They did not do any welfare. All of these transport and communication developments were done in order to serve the British commercial interests in India. So it was to serve British trade only. First railway was done in 1853. The first line ran from Bombay to Thane under Lord Dalhousie. So thus for the first time trains came in the Indian subcontinent, and the first railway line was from Bombay to Thane. On 16th April 1853, a train with 14 carriages and 3 locomotives carried 400 guests from Bori Bandar to Thane in 1 hour 15 minutes. So this was for the first time we get evidence of railways running in the Indian subcontinent, and it all happened in 16th April 1853, where 3 locomotives and 14 carriages carried 400 guests from Bori Bandar in Mumbai to Thane in 1 hour and 15 minutes. Grand Trunk Road was there from the medieval period. It was reconstructed from Calcutta to Peshawar to connect the regions. So Grand Trunk Road was reconstructed under the Britishers. Then there was telegraph, a system of instant communication established by the Britishers. The first experimental line was laid between Calcutta and Diamond Harbour. So Calcutta and Diamond Harbour became connected with the help of telegraph lines. By 1854, 4,000 miles of telegraph lines were laid connecting major cities. So by 1854, almost all the major cities in the Indian subcontinent were connected by telegraph lines, and it all happened within a period of 5 years. Dalhousie modernized postal and telegraph systems. So, postal and telegraph systems, which were very much essential for communication, was modernized by Lord Dalhousie. Railways and communication broke barriers, linked Indians, and promoted nationalism. So, even though it was done for the trading purposes of the Britishers, but still railways and communication increased communication among the Indians and promoted this theory of nationalism in the Indian subcontinent. Now we will go through the question answers which will help you in your exams. So what was the significance of the Charter Act of 1813 in terms of education? The Charter Act of 1813 was the first step towards the educational development of India. It directed the company to spend 1 lakh annually for the promotion of education in India. The charter also allowed missionaries to come to India for the propagation of their religion as well as education. When the Charter Act of 1813 was passed, what controversy arose on the issue of education? When the Charter Act of 1813 was passed, a controversy arose over the system and medium of instruction. One group of people supported Oriental education, while the other group wanted English education in India. Who were the Orientalists and the Anglicists? How was the controversy between them finally solved? The Orientalists were those who supported Oriental education in classical languages like Sanskrit, Arabic, and Persian. Anglicists were those who supported Western sciences, English literature through the medium of English. The controversy was finally solved in 1835 when Governor General William Bentinck accepted Macaulay's recommendation. English became the medium of higher education while Persian was abolished and substituted by English in law courts. What do you know about Macaulay's system of education? In 1835, Lord Macaulay introduced a system of education through his famous Minute. He strongly advocated the promotion of Western education in English. English became the medium of instruction, and English literature and science were encouraged. The aim was to create a class of Indians who would be Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in morals, and in intellect. Write a short note on Wood's Despatch. Wood's Despatch was issued in 1854. It was the first comprehensive educational plan for India. It accepted English as the medium of higher education and vernaculars as the primary level. Departments of education were set up in all provinces. In 1857, universities at Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras were established. It also recommended teacher training institutions and introduced a wider curriculum including arts, sciences, law, and engineering. How did the introduction of Western education in India benefit the British? The British intended to employ the English educated Indians on low salaries as clerks in the civil service. This helped reduce the administrative cost involved in bringing clerks from England. The British also hoped that the English educated Indians would provide a market for British goods and cater to the interests of British manufacturers. Discuss the negative effects of Western education in India. The British system focused on educating a limited number of Indians, which led to widespread illiteracy. A wide linguistic and cultural gulf was created between the educated few and the masses. The traditional system of Indian learning declined, especially after 1844 when English became essential for jobs. The English educated class remained loyal to the British and helped them run the empire. Educated Indians adopted Western culture and rejected Indian culture, patronizing British ways. Why did the British develop transport and communication facilities in India? To consolidate their position in India and promote industrial and commercial growth, the British developed railways, roads, ports, and irrigation facilities. These measures enabled British manufacturers to reach markets, uprooted Indian traditional industries, and helped maintain law and order. What measures did Lord Dalhousie take to improve transport and communication in India? The first railway line was inaugurated in 1853 from Bombay to Thane during Dalhousie's tenure. The Grand Trunk Road from Calcutta to Peshawar was reconstructed. Dalhousie introduced telegraph in India. The first line was laid between Calcutta and Diamond Harbour in 1850. By 1854, 4,000 miles of telegraph lines connected Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, Peshawar, Ooty, and Bangalore. He also established a modern postal system and efficient communication network. What was the effect of British policies on agriculture? The British policies adversely affected Indian agriculture. Farmers were forced to grow commercial crops like indigo, cotton, and opium for British industries. This led to the decline of food production and frequent famines. Heavy land revenue demands further worsened the condition of peasants. How did the British drain India's wealth? The British drained India's wealth through various methods. Raw materials were taken from India to feed British industries, while finished goods from Britain were sold in India. Heavy taxes were collected from Indians, and large sums were sent to England as salaries, pensions, and profits. Indian industries declined while Britain prospered. So that was all regarding the British education in India, where we have seen how the Britishers wanted to create a set of loyal Indians who would fulfill the purpose of cheap clerks for the company in India. We have also seen how the Britishers developed the society of India, even though for their own needs, but they helped to remove few of the social evils like female infanticide and Sati. They also promoted widow remarriage with the help of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. We have also seen how the Britishers introduced different transport system and communication systems like railways and telegraphs. So please go through the entire video in order to have a better understanding. You can note down the important points and support me so that I can bring brighter contents in future. Thank you for your patience.